And we are live. So, hello and welcome all to the channel. And I have the honor of welcoming back the illustrious Kate Elliott to the channel here, who's agreed not just one time to be on, but a second time. And this time should be especially fun because we talked before that you prefer more casual over interview. So this is the casual chatting show, which should be a whole lot of fun. I do have to bring up The Nameless Land is out now. I'll have a review of this coming out tomorrow because I'm a failure as a person and forgot how quickly the month of October was going. I didn't read it in time. It is fantastic, though. And it was really, I'm like, I have to make sure I finish this before we do this. And thankfully, it was really hard to put down. So that was really easy to get through. But I was super, super happy to get to it. We'll definitely talk about that. But I'll give you a second to say hi and introduce yourself as well for anyone who doesn't know you.
Well, thank you so much for having me back, Nico. I'm Kate Elliott. I write books. I've been writing books for a long, long time, and I'm still writing books, which kind of amazes me. But partly, I still really love to make up stories and write them, and it still kind of baffles me that people enjoy reading them. But also, I have literally at this point in my life no other marketable skill. I mean, I guess I could get minimum wage as a greeter at Walmart or something. I don't know, but so besides the fact that I still love writing, I also it's the only reasonable way I have to earn money anymore. And that's saying something because publishing is rough and not, and a rocky way to even attempt to earn any money at all.
So Walmart's starting to sound better every year.
No, because I have to. Then I would have to interact with people all the time, like hi, and I'm like,
that is fair.
No, I don't want to say. Oh,
I do not miss working with the public. I will tell you, I worked retail years ago, and I have never once in my life been like, I'd like to do more retail. So, not a thing I've had happen.
That's I know a few people who like to work retail. I have a friend whose daughter works retail and loves it. She loves clothes, so she works like at Nordstrom's, and she gets people to buy things, but not just stuff that's not good for them, but stuff that actually works for them. And she has like the highest sales numbers in the junior department. And I'm like, that is a gift.
Oh, absolutely.
And a skill.
Yeah. If you actually enjoy it and you're really good at it, that's a pretty good thing. So not everybody gets that by any means. But yeah, I bless those people. You need those people who like interacting with other people. But I'm the person that I could easily, like when I worked from home, the problem was getting me to leave the house and go interact with anyone. Because I'm like, I'm okay. I'll just stay home and read. It's all right.
One of the, I'm an outrigger canoe paddler, which is like my big sports love, because I've always been an athlete, but one of the things I love about outrigger canoe paddling is that I go and I paddle with other people, and then after I paddle, I'm like, okay, I filled up my extroverting for the day or for the week. If it 3 times a week is like, okay, I've had enough. Now I can go back home. So if I don't see anybody, I get like weird. But if I can go out 3, 4, 5 times a week and see people for a finite set of time, then I'm like, great. Yeah. It's great.
I feel like that works. That's definitely a way to to make that work. But you said too that you've been writing novels for a long time. And I was literally just because I've been telling everybody to read The Which Roads Duology. And so I have a group chat with a couple of friends, and we always share like really cool parts of books and whatnot. I just kept teasing them and like, look how good this section is, or like, look at this line, and just making them want to. And had the whole like, where do you start thing. And so I always point people, because if you don't know watching, she has a fantastic where you should start with the novels, including the breakdown of them like they're boy band characters, which is very fun. But I do think The Which Roads Duology, I think, is a really solid starting point because it encapsulates a lot of what you do. It's only 2 books. But I was just started like listing the books that you've done and like, started in 1988 under a different name and then keep going. And they're like, I did not realize she had that many books. I'm like, that's why we got to talk more about it. get your stuff out there. So
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and writing is like anything. I think, well, actually, to use that K-pop metaphor, it's funny to me because K-pop generations are very short. So you'll have like first gen K-pop, which I think comes from the late 80s, early 90s, and then second gen, which is the aughts, right? And then third gen starts about, I don't know, let's say 2012, 2013, 2014, but then fourth gen starts about 2018. So that's really a short generation there. And now they say that fifth gen groups are coming out, whatever that means. So I think that writing and science fiction fantasy has kind of the same thing, that there's, people, but maybe a little longer. So the generations are a little longer in the beginning of the genre, but then they start to compress. So you see stuff coming out today that you wouldn't have seen 15 years ago. I find that really interesting. And especially as someone who's been around for so long and has seen the field kind of shift while I've been working in it,
yeah.
it's pretty interesting. I was just talking with I had my writing group earlier today, and we were talking about I was talking about Cindy Pon is a young adult author, and her debut novel was in 2012. So not, I think 2012, but so not that long ago. And it was called Silver Phoenix, and it's a fantasy set in a kind of fantasy China. And the cover
Okay.
shows a young Chinese woman in a fantasy hanfu, like a fantasy Chinese robes dress, right? Kind of with her arms up, looking like, and it was evidently the first young adult fantasy novel to have an Asian girl on the cover. That's only
Oh,
13 years
really?
ago. Isn't that wild? Now,
Wow.
maybe there
Yeah,
was
you
adults.
would think.
Yeah, yeah, you would think. Now maybe adult science fiction and um, adult fantasy maybe earlier. But, I even had this happen in my career now that I think about it. And since we're talking about things, so I had a trilogy called the High Road Trilogy. It's one of my earliest trilogies. It came out, it's a science fiction trilogy, came out in 1990. All three books came out like 4 months apart or something. And the first cover is just kind of a generic spaceship taking off from a planet. And the second cover is a different artist and really weird and it's a terrible cover, actually. I don't mind saying. And the first one's fine. It was Alan Gutierrez. I try to remember artist names because often they're overlooked. So the third cover, they finally agreed to put the heroine on the cover. And they hadn't wanted to put her on the first cover because they said to me, this would have been in 1989, this year in this year or whatever, this period of time, we've already had a cover that had a woman with Asian features on the cover. So they couldn't have a second one within a year,
Oh,
18-month
geez.
period. Yeah. And that was standard. It was like, we can't put a Black person on the cover because it won't sell. That's how it was back in the day. And people just,
Yeah, man.
I know. And to us, it's like, now it seems like, what? It's hard to kind of fathom that, but that was standard. So I felt lucky that she got put on the cover of the third book. And it's the best cover of the three. Stephen Youll, Youll. He's a British artist. It's a great cover. So there
I
it is.
just looked them all up because I know that I haven't read that one yet. It's definitely on my list to get to. But I agree with that cover ranking. The
Do you have the
second book.
old covers? Not the new ebook versions.
Oh,
Not the
I'm on
new.
Goodreads, so it's like a picture of the old paperback. It
Okay,
looks like
okay.
so.
So
It does.
she's sitting in a chair. She's like sitting. It's the Star Trek scene, right? The
Yeah.
the bridge, right? So she's sitting in a chair, and there's a couple people to either side of her. Yeah, that's it. It's a great. I love that cover.
The book two one is a little zany. I'm pretty sure at least one or two of the weird old like book club Vorkosigan books that have that
Yeah.
kind of style of art. You get some of the zaniest stuff and some of the sci-fi stuff. So always a
Yeah.
fun time.
Well, and that's not even the worst cover that I've ever seen. It's like a far cry from the worst. I have back in the day, I feel like one of those, elderly people. Back in the day, there were some of the unbelievably worst covers, just terrible. So that one, at least, like, you can kind of make out what's going on, even though it's weird and has nothing to do with the plot, but whatever.
I do have to say, I sometimes I have absolutely picked up books like on a cover by because I'm like, oh, that's beautiful. I've also
Yeah.
picked them up because it looks ridiculous or just silly. And sometimes it ends poorly. Like I read, it was called Beyond the Drock's Teeth. It was by an author I'd never heard of. It was from the 80s. It was just kind of weird sci-fi, and it had this ridiculous cover. And I'm like, I got to read this. I got to experience whatever is going on in this book. And it was not good, but it was a really fun read because it was just so strange and like I don't know. It was so much fun, but even some of like I feel like one of the weirdest covers like always comes to mind for me is the first Dark Sword book by Weiss and Hickman, where if you really like zoom in on the facial features, they make no sense, and it's just the strangest thing. It's one I've joked about a bunch. It's just kind of a silly cover.
But when did that one come out? Because is that one of their later? That's because they did the Dragonlance books. Is this their own personal one they did? It wasn't a Dragonlance book?
Yeah, it wasn't it was it looks like 88 was the first one. But it was kind of like it was still D&D ish, but it was sort of like its own thing. It wasn't in the Dragonlance world.
Right. It wasn't work
It
for
was
hire,
also
so it was something they had done.
yeah, it was also not very good. I read a lot of the Dragonlance. I didn't like that one as much.
No, the Dragonlance books, I got to tell you, those Dragonlance books, I mean, I didn't read them, but those Dragonlance books brought a lot of people into the fantasy genre. A lot
Oh, absolutely.
of people. They were like a gateway for so many readers. And they have those classic Brothers Hildebrandt covers. Which are very distinctive. That's their style. They were like really big in the 70s and 80s, and their style is very distinctive. And if you see it on the cover, you're like, you kind of feel like you know what you're getting. It's like, oh, a fantasy book with dwarves and elves and, humans and axes and swords and maybe a dragon and, magic. And it's right there. It just tells you.
I legitimately, for a while, I used to just because I would like, I didn't live near a lot of bookstore stuff. And I remember I was at like any thrift stores or anywhere that had books. I would look and I would try to roll through really quickly because there's just a lot of miscellaneous stuff. And I would end up looking for cover artists. And so, yeah, you see that like Dragonlance style art. And I'm like, okay, there. I could identify a Daryl K. Sweet cover from like a mile away, I tell you. And I'm like, oh, Daryl K. Sweet, we're going to grab whatever this is. And, it's a mixed bag when you're just going based on the cover artist because you're going to find some great books, some not so good. But so many things like that. I would just be like, ooh, I recognize this work. I'm going to grab this. And it's always been an interesting experience kind of trying to pick based on some covers. And some books I love have terrible covers, and some books that I don't like have beautiful covers, and everywhere in between. So you never know what you're going to get.
Well, and I know better, but I will grab a book that has a beautiful cover and I'll pick it up and go, wow, this is great. Even if it might be something that I might not like. But a good art director has like their finger on the pulse of what an artist and what an aesthetic and what a look says to the passing reader. Because the whole point of the book cover is not to exactly illustrate the character, but to say, this is the kind of read you're going to get. So, and Daryl K. Sweet, whose art I actually really dislike. I find his art very off-putting. But But Daryl Quay Sweet covers told you what you were going to get. And so if you saw that cover with that style and whatever the stuff is, it would be like, I know what I'm going to get in here. And so
Yeah.
they worked. And that's the point. They worked, you know.
I think I've heard more people that don't like his style than that do, but I don't know. I always liked it from just because Wheel of Time. I spent so much time looking at those covers that his
Yeah,
style
yeah.
really grew on me, and that's how I ended up picking out. But it's
No, and
definitely, it's
there's
not
no
for
reason.
everyone.
There's
It's
yeah, but
very
there's no reason.
distinct.
There's no reason to apologize for liking a style of art because
Oh
it's
no,
just
yeah.
like saying, I like my I love music, and I like don't listen to a lot of modern jazz because it just doesn't ring. I just doesn't resonate with me. But that doesn't mean I mean, jazz is great music, but I just doesn't work for me. So I bet an artist might be able to look at a Daryl K. Sweet cover and say, this composition works because X, Y, and Z, right? It draws the eye here and that causes I don't know. I don't know enough about art, but I bet that he has something about his style that's distinctive and grabs people.
Oh, I'm
And
sure. I'm not the one to identify it either, but
yeah, I don't
that's
know.
there's different stuff definitely hits people differently too. So there's always a wide variety, especially with art. We do have a question here from Zach, talking about your books of Duran.
Mm.
I think saying reading it for the first time and just what stands out to you in comparison to your other series about Duran.
So the Duran books, first of all, they're my first big epic series where I had this vast canvas that involved empires and both terrestrial empires and you know I don't want to say galactic empires because it's not a galactic, but interstellar empires and the conflict between people who've been conquered and the people who conquered them. What about, how do people struggle for freedom or more autonomy, and plus a lot of adventure. And the High Road books, which the first draft of the first novel, Duran, was written before the High Road books, and it was quite bad.
Okay.
I just want to say it was quite bad. It took me 10 years. Took me 10 years and 8 drafts to get to the published version that was finally published in 1992. And that's just because I was a very inexperienced writer. So, and that's normal. So the High Road books were also a bit about empire building, but the Duran books are like the first really big canvas thing I wrote, and they also developed out of a world that I had been devising, a map that I drew in my teens, and that it's also the map for Crossroads, even though Crossroads is a fantasy, and there's a whole backstory to how I explain how that could be possible. But so in that sense, to me, it represents me spreading my wings, my epic wings, and saying, I'm going to write this huge story. I'm going to start with the first novel, which is fairly self-contained, has a strong romantic element. A lot of people love that story because of the strong romantic element, but it also has the adventure and the background of the galactic empire, and it has empire building and riding across. I'm sure the horses are badly depicted, I'm embarrassed to say. If I did a revision, that would probably be the main thing I would fix. I'm sure that they're a bit of like horses, like motorcycles. Anyway, I was young. I can tell you other things. I actually love those books. There's some detail stuff that I kind of like wince at now, but I think overall, I still think they really work. And because each book gets bigger, and then and I still have to write the last 3 because stuff happens. Well, they're science fiction, and I had an opportunity to launch an epic fantasy series, which I'm sorry to put it this bluntly, but which at the time and to some extent, I don't, it's maybe not so true now, but at the time, epic fantasy was simply selling better than science fiction across the board. This was the era. So King's Dragon, which is the first of Crown of Stars, came out in 97. So, a lot at the same year, actually, or right around, like within 3 months of the first George Martin book. So people were launching big fantasy series then because Brooks had done well and Jordan had done well, so it was a thing then. So I took the chance to do that because the Geron books, like most series, are kind of like the first one sells and then the next one sells a little less and then a little less and then a little less. And so you're kind of like on that downward slope. So given the chance to launch a new series, I took that. But then I was
Makes
never
sense.
really able to come back to the Geron books, partly because it took me so long to finish Crown of Stars. And then once I had finished Crown of Stars, what publishers wanted from me was another fantasy. They didn't want me to go back to Geron. A couple of about 12 years ago, I actually offered a publisher the fifth Geron novel, and I said, I promise you I will write it so that, and I said, it won't be the fifth Geron novel. It will be a novel set in this universe that new readers can read without having read any of the other ones. And they said no, because it's not their property. They think we want a new universe. So I was like, oh well, I have to put my decisions as a writer are based on what I want to write, what grabs me, because if it doesn't grab me, I can't write it. And then the third factor is, the first factor is, do I have an idea? Then which ones grab me enough that I really want to put in all that time and effort to write them? And then the third one is, I have to eat and pay my mortgage, right? So I have to balance those. And that's why I haven't gone back to them yet, but I haven't given up hope because I still have the outline of, I know the things that happen. So
Well,
that's,
yeah, I will. I'm planning to read the first one at some point in 2026. It is one of I'm doing with Fina, Josephine, who I know you were on her channel as well. We decided to do
yeah,
a backlist book club, and so we
nice.
started early because we just couldn't wait. But we're doing older. It's all female authors, all at least somewhat older books and series.
Uh-huh.
Doing one per month, and Duran will be on there. We haven't fully scheduled when's going to be what, but that'll be on there. So, and chances are I will end up reading all of them because I have a feeling I'm going to not be able to stop myself. So, we'll hopefully be getting some more eyes on it in 2026 for sure.
I will say
That's
about Geron, the Geron stands alone. You can read that and never read anything else. And then the next two books are actually a duology. And again, you could read that big, they're richer if you've read the first one. You could theoretically read them, and it does have an ending. The two-book one, which is His Conquering Sword and Earthly Crown, or I call it The Sword of Heaven. And then the last book, the same. Law of Becoming is the same, but taken together, they tell a really big, and I think a very rich and complicated story. But I did try to they're not like cliffhanger endings, except for the duology. But because that one was just chopped in half too, because
gotcha.
it was long. It was long. That's what publishers do. But I did that because, Geron is just written that way. But so anyway, it's a story that you can read and feel satisfied at the end. And I hope people go on to read the other books, but they can just read that one. But I want to ask, what other books are you reading for this series?
Oh, let me pull up the list here really quick. So we did the ones we've started with so far. Oh, why won't my list open up? So we started with, which kind of it kind of counts, kind of doesn't, because it wasn't really a part of this, but did the first Wayfarer Redemption book, the Sarah Douglas book,
Oh
earlier this
boy,
year.
that is good. Yeah, I've never read it. I've never read it.
It is another one with a really interesting cover, but it is a really really interesting one. Oh,
I can see the cover
there
though.
it
That's
is.
what's funny. You know what's funny is I know the cover. I know which cover it is, and that's that style was very much part of that era.
Yes.
I
There
wish
we
we
go.
had little
I know I have
pop-ups.
my
I wish we had
list.
little pop-ups. I don't have that.
Well,
I know there are people who can do all that, but I don't know how. Yeah.
I'm not that technologically good either, but I do have the books.
Yeah,
It's kind of grainy, but
it's a classic of its time.
yes. And then okay, because I just was playing. We just did Shards of Honor by Bujold, the first Orkozagin book.
Yeah, that's a great one.
Which was that was I'd read some of her fantasy, but the sci-fi was a lot of fun. This month we are doing the Book of the Damned by Tanith Lee. That's the first of the Secret Books of Paradise.
Yeah.
Then we have the first Faded Sun book by C.J. Cherry, the first Devilry book by Catherine Kerr.
Okay, you're like right into my wheelhouse. So first of all, I have to say C.J. Cherry is one of my huge influences. And that I think those books, I think the Chandra books, and Cherry's such a weird writer, but she's also utterly unique and I think really innovative. And that's the first trilogy of hers I read. It blew my mind when I read it when it came out, because I'm old. And then the Devery books, the Devery, not the Darini, right? The Dagger Spell.
Yes. Yeah, although I'm actually going to be reading the first Darini book this month too, just coincidentally.
Oh yeah, I'm not as into the. I don't like the Darini books as well, because they have the we're born with magic powers, and I don't. They're more aristocratic. Like we're special people because we're born with the blood, and I don't really like that much. But the Devery books are great. So I'm excited for your.
You may or may not have had something to do with several of these making the list after our last conversation. So.
Oh really?
I remember we specifically talked about Devery on there. Was one too.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of these excited, and then we also have Black Sun Rising by C.S. Friedman.
She's unique. She's unique.
I meant to get to that one for so long as well, and I read the first chapter of that one. I sampled it a while back, and I'm like, it seemed very interesting.
Yes, it's kind of very grim opening.
Yeah. And then Sheep Farmer's Daughter, the first of the Deed of Parksonarian by Elizabeth Moon.
Yeah, it's another classic of that era. Absolute classic.
Yeah. Also have The Baker's Boy by J.V. Jones.
I haven't read that one.
I know her stuff's sort of like the dark shock kind of stuff, like Grimdark before Grimdark was a thing. So I'm not sure how I'm going to feel about it, but I've heard her later stuff is way better, but I like to start at the beginning because that's the way I am. So
I think that her stuff this is her first trilogy, and I don't think it has the signature things that you're talking about. Her later series is the one that's much darker. But I don't really know about this one. I don't know. It didn't interest me at the time.
But fair enough. And then Dragon Prince, Melanie Ron.
Yeah, classic. Another classic.
That one, I'm a little ashamed that I haven't read yet, because it's been on my list for so long, which a lot of these have. We have some Trudy Canavan in there with the first of the Age of 5, Priestess of the White. I guess that's one of a few of these that are actually somewhat newer. A lot of these are pre-2000s, but and then The Innocent Mage by Karen Miller. Yeah, that's the first of Kingmaker, Kingbreaker. Yeah, and then Sephriel's Hand by Melissa McPhail, the first Pattern of Shadow and Light, which is the newest on the list.
That one. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I just realized I missed one in here. The Wall by Marlon Haushofer, which is a sci-fi from the 60s, is in there too.
I don't know that one. Wild.
That one was one from Fina, and I did not know it either, but it sounds really interesting.
Is it
I've heard
German?
it
Is it
mentioned a couple
German
times.
translated into English?
Yes, it looks like.
Okay, that's why I don't know. Yeah.
I just pulled up, so which is it's fair when you got translated stuff here too. But yeah, so that is our lineup, and I'm really excited for all of it, to be perfectly honest. So
It's a great lineup. And the other thing that's going to be interesting is going to be reading books that are very much of their time. I mean, because that's an era that, and then you can kind of see how the elements of today's, you can find early elements of today in there, but also stuff that wouldn't be in a book today. It's like,
yeah,
yeah, that's great. It's going to be fun.
oh for sure. It's and I fully expect there to be some stuff like that where sometimes if you're going get back reading older stuff, you can get that, and sometimes it you can get past, sometimes not, but it'll be interesting.
Yeah.
I'm just like, I'm so glad so many of these are things that I've wanted to read for years, and so I'm really excited to get to it, and I always need more reason to read your stuff too. So that's why Duran felt like a really good one to throw on in there too. It's just one that doesn't get talked about as much either. So I can only yell at people about Crown of Stars so much, So
it's actually, Crown of Stars is my best-selling series. And it's kind of like the one that kind of clunks along the most. And I think it's because it's epic fantasy set in faux medieval, a fantasy medieval Europe. And I think that's just eternally popular.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, it's also excellent, which helps for sure.
Well, thank you.
But
Thank you.
it is.
Well,
it does have that very classic epic fantasy, medieval kind of feel. So it gets a lot of that, but it does a lot of unique stuff too, for sure.
And it's definitely epic because it's got it's got everything and the kitchen sink.
Yes. Well, you commented with talking about Duran how it was the first thing you did that just kind of gets bigger.
Yeah.
Every book. And that was Crown of Stars for me. I feel like you just upped the world building game every book. And it got to a point where I'm like, what is she going to do next? And you found a way where we find underground civilizations and stuff. And I'm just like, I never would have seen that. And like, there's always something more. But that's right. Yeah, I'm such a world building focused reader, and I love those elements, and that's the stuff that has just made me fall in love with your stuff so much. Is you always have interesting stuff going on with the world.
Thank you. And actually, I did that deliberately with that book, which the first book is King's Dragon is fairly tightly focused, like Duran. But then you can expand out, because I think it can be hard. I guess in that sense, I was probably doing what Tolkien did, because he starts small, and I'm not talking about The Hobbit here, but even with Lord of the Rings, he starts, in the Shire, and there's a birthday party, and then something happens, and then slowly the world expands and gets bigger. So the reader doesn't get overwhelmed, because if you dropped the reader straight into Mordor in chapter 1, or even Gondor in chapter 1, it wouldn't have any resonance. It'd just be like, okay, this guy's got a big eye and he's scary. I don't know. But by the time you get up to that, by the time you keep expanding it and add things in, it builds the reader's sense of investment in the world and their understanding of the world. And I love doing that. It's just like one of my favorite things. I want people to reach a point at 50 pages from the end where I drop just a line, and the reader, that by itself doesn't mean anything, but the reader will go, oh my God, I understand now, or oh no, this is the worst thing that could happen, even if it's otherwise an unremarkable line, but because they have all that buildup that they bring to it. So just the same way, like if you took a book and if you took a book about football, or if you had a moment of where someone goes touchdown, right? And you played it for people who'd never heard of football, they'd be like, okay, right? But if you play it to an
That's fair.
American, or most Americans, they're going like, touchdown, that's great, right? Even if they don't know who's playing, they know that touchdown is something to celebrate. And that's kind of like what I want to do with writing. I want to have that moment where I don't have to explain to the reader, because the reader already knows it.
Mm.
So that when the narrative says touchdown, the reader's like, yes, right? Or whatever it might be. So it could be bad, it could be good, it could be whatever. And that's always what I want to
That's a
do as a
really
world
interesting way to
builder.
look at it. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I think that's a really interesting way to phrase it, but makes sense. I mean, that's what you're going for. You want it to make sense. You don't want to have to tell the reader, because you can always see in those moments where sometimes authors either they're inexperienced, or they just don't trust the reader, and they're like, I have to tell you, and it's just it
Oh
doesn't
yeah.
have the same weight as if you just know, and you're like, oh, that means. And yeah, that's always the most rewarding moment when you catch something from a
Yeah.
line like that. So
Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
can definitely appreciate that.
And one of my I there's a Robin McKinley book called The Blue Sword, which I actually really love, but she drops
That's
the
on my list.
ball. She drops the ball at one moment late in the
Mm.
book, where um there's this moment where this thing happens, and I don't know how to, I'm trying to think how to explain it without spoiling it. Um, Basically, someone who's been gone for a while returns, and they're wearing an item, and then the person they're returning to sees them wearing the item, and then she stops the narrative to explain the item and what it means. And I was just like, no, you should have set it up before, so that all you had to do was have like he sees her, then he sees the item, and then he and the reader go, oh, right? That's what you want. You want that engagement, not to stop and explain it.
Yeah, that
Ah,
definitely sounds rough.
yeah. And
It's
it is,
making me think.
go ahead.
I'm sorry. There's a trilogy that he's popular enough, I can say. So I don't know if you know James Islington, but his first trilogy, like Caney's, and his new stuff is his second book's coming out really soon too. And Will of the Many
Yeah.
was really popular. His first trilogy I really enjoyed, but it had a lot of stuff that was very obviously a debut author who was figuring stuff out. But in the third book, there's a really large plot line that he had to cut for time. So he still has what happens at the end. Somebody shows up with some inexplicable powers, and you just have to be like, that, stuff happened, and this makes sense. Just trust me. And it's just like, I'm like, oh man, but you can't do that. You just can't do that. And they were still fun books, but it's just when you kind of just
Wow.
have it happen like that, it was rough. But his new stuff was definitely a lot better. But
Well,
he had some fun ideas, everything there.
I think that's the other thing, is that writers have to have writers, like any artist, right? They need room to improve, and you can't.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a few people will come out with like an incredibly accomplished debut novel, often that they've been working on for 10 years, or maybe because they come at it after having been writing other stuff for 20 years. I don't know, whatever. But a lot of times people need time, so their earlier work is going to be a little
Yeah.
rougher. They won't have the tricks, or they won't have the eye, or they won't know how to revise. That was me. My earlier work is not as accomplished as my later work. Some people like the rougher edges. I think for some readers, the rougher edges feel a little more, I want to say, authentic, or like it's more of like the heart of what they're doing, because as you get more skilled, you begin to sand a little bit that off, because you're trying to make it read really smoothly. Um, so but so I feel for him, because he probably, poor guy, hated having to cut that plot line. I haven't read those books,
Yeah.
but it must have killed him to have to cut that plot line. And he's like, well, what can I do? All right, I'll bring him back at the end. you know, so. But also, I'm always glad when readers are willing to cut a little slack for writers in their earlier work to say, this is really good and I want to read more stuff by them, with the hope that, with the thought that, wow, I enjoyed this, but now the next one, they're going to have learned from writing
Yes.
this. And then the next one's going to be like, more accomplished and gonna,
Yeah.
yeah.
I always try to be cognizant, and I've read a lot of debuts, so I always try to think like, you get a little bit of grace, and sometimes I'll be like, hey, I didn't really like this, but I feel like this author has stuff to say that's going to be interesting, so I will try something else from them down the line too, even sometimes with
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
But if I like something, I'm like, hey, this is really rough. At some points, it's a debut. I'm not gonna, if I find stuff that I like, I'm still gonna have the stuff I like and enjoy. But as long as yeah, it's like there are levels. I've read some really bad debuts where I'm like, I don't think I want to read this author because of stuff that's more egregious.
Yeah.
But I'm very big. I try to cut some slack myself too, just because people do. It's like you said, people need time to improve, and sometimes just writing, getting it out there, you learn a lot after you have stuff out there, and you're able to get more feedback, more eyes are on it. You hear more thoughts and can figure stuff out, I'm sure. So.
Well, it's just
Granted, I've never
experience of
written
doing
anything.
it. Well, it's like anything, but what do you have as like a vocation or a hobby, that's something that you have worked on that you're better now than you were 10 years ago?
Well, so mine is a little different, but I do vocals, like metal style, like scream vocals,
Oh yeah.
which definitely your jam, Kate, I'm sure. But I started when I was a teenager. I joined a band and just told them that I could do that kind of vocals, and I'd never done them before, just wanted to, and kind of figured it out. And which is a true story. Like, I don't recommend doing that, because I was real bad to start with, because there's a lot of technique involved. But it's like, over time I've definitely learned a lot more technique, and figured it out, and pretty. I'm still not like an amazing vocalist by any stretch, but definitely better than I was.
See, so that's I mean, it can be anything. It could be people like someone who first learns to cook, and they, boiling an egg is a big deal, and then 10 years later they're making these meals that, but whatever. So, and that's a great example. It actually makes me think. I when I get on YouTube, there's always these little YouTube shorts that pop up, and I saw the funniest one. Speaking of the metal scream, it was, I guess it's the Miss Universe pageant this week or last week. Did you see the Miss Chile?
Yep.
Was that wild? She's this beautifully made up, beautiful young woman in her slender gown, slinky gown, and then she's doing her thing, and they start the thing, and out comes. I mean, it was wild.
Yes. Oh, my wife showed me that, and I'm like, that's amazing. And I looked, apparently she like legitimately has like been in a band for years, and just that's just two passions of hers. I'm like, that's so crazy, but that's so cool. I love seeing stuff like that. Just kind of those cool mainstream moments, for sure.
Yeah. And she just did not look like the person. Well, especially the Miss Universe pageant is not the place you were going to expect that.
Not yet. You definitely don't expect it there, especially, I would say. So, all right. So I've only been ignoring the chat for 30 minutes this time.
All right.
We do have a question. Oh, I think I forgot to ask you about this in the interview, but the golden key, which is not in arm's reach, it's over there, but how that came about.
So first of all, everyone who wants to know about the golden key should always go look at the full Michael Whalen cover, which is fantastic. And there he's going to grab it. And the best part, this is a book about art, for those who don't know, where magic can be worked through art, and the villain is on the cover painting himself. That's Saavedra in the back. The villain is on the cover, and Michael Whalen used himself as the model. because he was into it. And then there's all these details on the cover that, yes, yeah. So all these details on the cover that are either direct references to things in the book or are metaphors for things in the book. Anyway, it's a great cover. I have now, I mean, I've had one Michael Whalen cover, that one, and I can die happy because he's incredible. But it came about because Melanie, Jennifer, and myself were all clients of the same agent. Yeah, there we are. We're all clients of this. We were young, of the same agent. And it was the era of, there was a, Jennifer had secretly worked on as a kind of a fixer on one of those three grand dames writing a book together. And there was one with, I don't even remember who it was. Like there was some book that three really super well-known fantasy women writers of the generation previous to ours had done, and it had done really well. And for some reason or another, either Jennifer or Melanie said to our mutual agent, we should do that. And Jennifer and Melanie were quite well selling at that time. So you always need like the junior, the least author. So they said, well, it could be me. And for me, it was a great deal because it would allow me to get a foot in. So at this point, I had the High Road trilogy, which is science fiction, and the Geron books, which are science fiction. But it would allow me to get a fantasy publication. So it'd kind of be like, yes, I have fantasy credentials too, which then my agent and I thought we could leverage into getting a fantasy deal, which we did indeed do. So that came about for that reason. And we, this was the era of faxes, like fax machines, wild. And I had to buy a fax machine so we could fax things back and forth because online wasn't even a thing yet. That's how long I got. It feels like 5,000 years ago, right? In the Paleolithic, where we would, anyway. So I flew out. We all flew to, Melanie and I flew to Jennifer's house for a long weekend in like February. And we just spent the weekend brainstorming, and we decided to begin with, we decided that we wouldn't try to write a braided novel where it's like we have three characters and then they each have adventures and they have to be like each chapter goes, because that had caused a lot of trouble on that other collaboration, I guess. And I think that's why Jennifer had been brought in as a bit of a fixer. So this wasn't my idea. It was either Melanie or Jennifer's idea. That their bright idea, and it was a good one, was to say, we'll do generational story. So we each write our generations. So the first generation was written by Jennifer, and that's like the origin story of the villain. And then this middle part is written by Melanie, and that's kind of like the consolidation part. And then the last part was kind of I would call it the revolution part. And then it finishes up. So now we're dealing with like the grandchildren of, or more, I'm not quite great grandchildren, of the people who appeared in the first book, except for the villain who uses magic, painting magic. And we brainstormed and wrote up descriptions of paintings and I did a lot of reading about painting, old master painting techniques, so I could at least get one or two details right. And then we each went home and wrote, and we had, wrote our outlines, and each said, yeah, that works. And then we each wrote our sections, and then we sent them back together, and then we read over the ones. And that was the only time we had any trouble was that Jennifer and Melanie are both, Jennifer was an only child and Melanie was an eldest child, and I'm a youngest child. So they both are like, they will not let a manuscript out of their hands until they have polished. I'm like, I'm going to write my first draft, let people see it, hear their comments, and then I'll do a revision, right? So I send in something that to them didn't feel as polished as what they had sent out. So they were like, is she serious about this? And I'm like, no, this is just how I sent things. This is what I just send an earlier draft and then do more revisions on the other side. And they're like, oh, okay. So it worked out. And that's how we did it. And then we did the revisions, then we sent it to the editor, and then the editor had comments, and then we did another set of revisions. But that allowed us to each do our own section while having an overarching
Interesting. Okay.
story, and that we had done all the world creation together. We had created the overall storyline together and the basics that we needed to do, but then we each had our own little yard to play in. So it was like one big house, but we each had our own yard. And that worked out really well. It was actually it was fun. I don't know that I would do another collaboration like that, not because there was anything wrong with it, but because it was also a lot of work and different
Oh, I
than
imagine,
working
yeah.
alone. But it was really fun to do. And on the strength of that is how I got the contract, the initial contract to do King's Dragon and start a big epic fantasy series of my own.
Which, yeah, definitely a plus there, for
Definitely
sure.
a plus there. It would have been much harder for me to get that initial risk for that story.
I had no idea that you guys split it into 3 parts like this. This is one I definitely need to read as well. It's been on my list for a long time, as well as stuff from both of those authors. But maybe I should read it in 3 parts then. I don't know. Maybe I'll do that and finally get to it.
Well,
It's a chunky book.
It is. I mean, each of those stories is like a short novel. They're not like 3 novellas. It's like 3 short novels. But the other, so talking to go back to that conversation we had about the reader learning enough that by the end they can understand things that you don't have to explain. So the Golden Key opens it starts with descriptions of several paintings. And then over the course of the story, you learn that there's all this language that goes into these paintings, including about the magic, but also what it means. And so there's a lot of written, there's like, if you understand the language that goes into the paintings, and I don't mean a written language like, with written letters, but the visual language, you can get a message from that painting it to tell you something. So at the beginning, we just have those paintings and a discussion of them. And then at the kind of a fake academic discussion of them. Then you read the whole book. And then at the end, we have another set, a different set of one or a couple of paintings, and then a little bit of academic discussion. But one of the things we did with that is that something in the academic discussion is misunderstanding what's going on, but the reader will know what it really means. And it's just so, yeah. And I'm like, yes,
I love that.
We're so smart. Yeah. I mean, that's one of the reasons to write, is to get that effect, to have people come up to you and go, oh, well, the classic Crown of Stars one is, when's Hugh gonna die? I mean, I love that question, right? I get so much satisfaction from that question. And I think most writers are like that. They like really want to hear the reader say, oh, I hated you when you wrote this part. Yes, right. Not the kind of hate was like you did something really truly awful. Not that kind, but narrative hate, or when I figured out this thing, it was just so incredible. It's very gratifying.
I did have a friend of mine. He ended up DNFing King's Dragon because he just found Hugh too monstrous and too real as a villain, and he was talking about it and said something and just was describing it, and immediately somebody else is like, wait, what is this book? This sounds amazing. And ended up picking up the book because of that description. And so I just thought that was funny. And I'm like, he is a terrible villain. And so I definitely get it. But it's very compelling character, terrible person, but very compelling character to read. And sometimes it's really interesting when characters are well built like that, and you can still like read them and see them as people, even though they're just horrible, horrible people. But Hugh is
Yeah.
definitely, I hear, is one of the most hated characters from a lot of people. So you accomplished something there for sure.
Thank you. Thank you. But the other thing about Hugh, is he's very realistic. This kind
Yeah,
of he doesn't do anything that there isn't too many men of power doing right now
yeah,
and getting away with it. And it's just a portrait of power. And grievance. It's like a portrait of power combined with grievance. He wants something that he doesn't have and he can't get it. And then so he's anyway. So and I think so. I think that your friend is quite right. It is realistic, and that makes it for some people that could be too unpleasant. But I have to say,
yeah.
I have gotten a few very deeply, deeply moving letters of people who have written to me and said essentially, thank you for the Crown of Stars books. I read them at a time of my life when the implication is they were dealing with something not unlike what Elliott is dealing with, which is horrifying to consider. There's never any, it's just implied, never details. And that this showed me that there was a path out, or this showed me that that people could get through it. And I just, as a writer, you don't know how your work is going to strike people. You don't
Yeah.
know. You don't know that it might save someone's life. I actually, when Jennifer and Melanie and I did the tour for the Golden Key, I will never forget this. We did a book signing on the California coast in a town with a smaller bookshop that liked to host people. And so we had it wasn't a big signing, but at one point a woman came in. She came up to Jennifer with a bottle of wine. And she said, I just need to give this to you. She said, your Chesuli books got me. So this is a generational thing. She said, my husband was in the war, by which she meant the Vietnam War. She goes, and one day, some years after the war, so this would probably been the late 70s or early 80s, she said he went into his room and he didn't come out for 3 years. So, something like that, right? She said, and your Chesuli books, I read them and reread them. They got me through that time.
Mm,
I mean,
that's special. Yeah.
that's so we never know as artists of any kind what we're giving to people or what people receive. And then we receive that, right, in our turn. When someone tells me that, if I'm having a bad day, I think, you know what? If I do nothing else with my life, if nothing else in my career happens, I will know it was worth it. If I helped one person, it's very
Oh,
humbling.
yeah.
It's very humbling because I don't set out to I don't sit down and say, I'm going to write something today that will change someone's life or help them through a crisis. I think I sit down to write the story. And so it's like like art is a gift, but it's also a responsibility.
Yeah. I can't even imagine that, but it's just, I feel like going to those meaningful things. And while, as an author, like you said, you're not like setting out to do that, but there's just, I mean, there's a lot of, especially for people who are big readers, and that's the thing, like books mean
Yeah,
things to people.
they do.
Um,
They do.
and, I feel like every like big reader, they have that one book or that one series that's just like the extra special, read it through a tough time. Like that's Wheel of Time for me. That's why I'll be,
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
lifelong fan of that. That was the series I
Yeah.
read through a lot of stuff and everything. And it's just, that's really special. And it's
Yeah.
getting
Yeah.
to share that with an author too. I feel like that is really special. I do
Yeah,
have
I
Shapeshifters
just want to say
nearby
about
too.
Wheel of Time, which wasn't Tolkien was mine, Lord of the Rings was mine, but I've always been heartbroken for Robert Jordan that he didn't get to finish it. I mean,
Yeah.
what a terrible, yeah, just what I don't know, I want to say bad luck. Just really sad that because he wrote something that had a huge effect on the field.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so taking it to a less somber note,
Yeah, I know. I
I
was just
feel
thinking
like
that.
we've gone a bit, trying not to go there, but so I will bring up because I just as I was filming my review for Nameless Land earlier today, I specifically mentioned that I can't believe how invested you had me in a romantic subplot. Because I'm not a romance reader or much of a romance fan, and you mentioned in Duran there's apparently a strong a romantic subplot as well there. But I'm curious with how you approach romance because like there's a bit of that in Crown of Stars, but not in quite the same way. But like specifically in the Witch Rose duology, it's sort of an unconventional romance to be sure. I'm trying to
Mhm.
be kind of vague, but the way that was written, it just felt so strong, and it didn't feel like it was the focus of the plot by any means, but it was also integral to the plot. And I just I don't think I've ever been that invested in any romance stuff that I've read. So just kind of curious with what your approach is to that one, if that one was anything different for you, or um, how that one worked out, I guess.
It's an interesting question. I have to think about what I can say without spoilers.
It's yeah, it's a hard one
But
to talk
but
about.
it wasn't. Most of my books have some manner of romantic subplot that has either a greater or a smaller part in the story, in large part because different kinds of love, and it doesn't just have to be romantic love, but people have all kinds of different kinds of connection and love. And I like to portray a range of life. And in this case, I'm not sure exactly quite where the haunt came from originally. Like if I go like deep in the like where's the genesis of the story, I'm not quite sure. I just knew that when Ellen and Kim walked into that place that it was like, oh yeah, this guy's there. And he's a little he's a little more ominous at first, but I think a lot of that I just didn't want to write I'm the ominous, potentially evil guy, right? Because maybe I've done it or I'm not interested in it anymore. So um, for me, the there's that sense of two outsiders forming a snap alliance, right? Like an unspoken snap alliance. The haunt's an outsider and she's an outsider, and they're like, okay, we're going to support each other because we're surrounded by people for whom we don't really exist. um I mean, and he definitely doesn't exist for them. And then but for me, the there's a point where early on when they're walking, it starts to rain and everyone else is like getting their poncho on and getting it over, and he's just like turning his face up to the rain because, sorry, this is I guess this, but it happens early on. It's like because he's been in in stasis in stone for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, and he's back in the world again. And so that fit with Ellen. Ellen is a person who's had a terrible backstory. She had a grueling childhood. Um, for reasons that we eventually find out. Um, but her way of dealing with it, unlike that of her sister, who was just so deeply traumatized that it was a battle for her to live, to function. She was very erratic, and she was either really happy or angry or whatever. But Ellen took from that this sense that, wow, the world's really beautiful, and actually it directly addresses that issue with the Witch Roads toward the end of the book. The world is really beautiful, and that dovetails with the haunt, who's like, I was I was voluntarily in stasis in stone for hundreds and hundreds of years, and now I'm back and I appreciate the world in a way I didn't before. And that's where that story comes from me. And I think that that way in which it dovetails these two approaches is why maybe it doesn't seem like a smarmy romance. And I don't
Mm.
use the word. I mean, I like romances a lot, but sometimes they can feel a little like, we're going to lay it on, like spackle the paint on thick or whatever. And those don't necessarily work for me, but I think it's because what initially brings them together are these two things that aren't about we want to jump in bed together immediately. It's more about
Yeah.
we're outsiders, so we have an alliance, and we both discover that we feel the same way about how amazing the simple things of the world are. And I think that but the thing is, each story like that, each love story like that in any given one of my books is going to be different because it depends on the people involved. It is because
Yeah.
I'm not going to like do that with another. So if you look at, I don't know if like Spirit Walker and Cold Magic, that I was working with some very specific tropes in that. And probably I have to say that the Cold Magic, Cold Fire, Cold Steel, it's a Spirit Walker trilogy. I would have to say that across a 3-book span, probably I think the character development that I think is most complex and that I think is really, really fantastic. The two ones would be Andavai in that series, because he's a complete asshole at the beginning, but he doesn't change, he matures. And there's a big difference between those two things. He's still the same person at the end of the trilogy, but he's matured. And then the other one is in the Crossroads trilogy, that's Spirit Gate, Shadowgate, Traitor's Gate. She wasn't, there's a lot of things about her. She's written for me against type. A lot of my heroines are very active people who are less, I'm going to say girly, right? But she's very girly. And I deliberately decided it was time for me to write a girly heroine. Because that's like so against type for me. And I ended up falling completely in love with her in terms of as the character and her function in the plot. So, and she's again the same but different. I'm not a big believer in characterization of like, and then I learned better and I became a new person. I don't think we become new people. I think
Yeah.
we either can grow and adapt or we get stuck. But anyway, that's why I think maybe that love story worked for you, because it's actually about almost more about other things than about we want to jump into the sack together. And a lot of romances are kind of about
Fair.
I'm lusting after you, which is fine. That's also a fine way to go. I mean, I've read some great books that are about, but it's not the only way to write a love story.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And that was the particulars around it too, where make it where it's more than that too. And some of the ways that was explored, I think worked really well. Here's
Again, can I
my
just say that I try to avoid reading Goodreads reviews because I know it's a mistake, but when a book is in the arc phase, I'll sometimes like poke over to look because it's so, I'm like, oh, did anyone like this book? Is everyone ever going to read it? Did they get what I was doing with it? And there is an arc review of The Nameless Land. You're going to laugh. That says, well, I really liked this, but my big problem, I dropped a star because my favorite character from book 1, the implication being that it's the haunt, said, my favorite character from book 1 doesn't recur in book 2. And I was like, wow, did they
oh
miss?
boy.
I know, right? So there's a whole level of interest in them being unable to see that, right? I don't want to say any more. There's a
I'm
whole
so
level
confused.
that, but you know why they could. But if you think about it a second, you're understanding why they didn't see it. They couldn't see it.
I suppose,
That's
yeah.
the only thing I can think. It's like it couldn't. Anyway, yeah, I thought that was wild. Then
That
later, there's
is,
a later
yeah.
one that says, and actually, for those of you, a few people have said this character doesn't recur, but they're absolutely back in this book. So,
Yeah. Oh
oh
man.
man,
That's
yeah,
well, I feel like thematically, one of the things that stood out the most with the series is just that like people are people. Um,
yeah,
and you have two different sorts of setup of cultures and societies where class and structure is really really important, and you have the people at the top and the people at the bottom are barely even people to them, or in some cases pretty much literally not people to them.
yeah,
And we've got different races and creatures and hybrids and stuff, kind of that mix. But that's where it just kind of kept coming back to. It's just people are people, and I feel like that was never something that you were like outright having to explain or tell the reader, but just so much of like just the way people interact, or like Zilsi, who's technically in one spot but it's just like talking like any other person, and there was so much of that, just people are people. And I felt like that came through really strongly throughout with that exploration, without going into the like over the top these people are from here, but we've learned that we're really the same. We didn't have to do all of that. It was just
right,
like
right,
throughout, like people are people.
right. And there are people do bring their prejudices and their expectations into any setting. And I'm a, I want, I always want writers to write the book they want to write. And whatever it is, I don't care. For me personally, I don't want to just recapitulate the society I live in constantly. I don't need
Yeah,
to do that. I want to write something else. So a different way that people have. So, um, if you're in a society that has one view of how things are, I'm not going to say it has to be, oh, now we're going to learn. It would be like writing, reading, writing, excuse me. Oh my God, I can't talk anymore. If you set something in Athens, in classical Athens, you're not going to have some guy, some man go on and on. There might be one guy, right? But it's about feminism and how women are so great and they're equal to men. It's just not realistic. It's I'm sure there were men who treated the women in their lives in an equal way, but societally, it's not even legal. Women don't even have legal equivalent rights remotely. So um, I like, having someone like Chelsea, who you do see. It's really funny because in the Witch Rose, I introduce. Hold on, I I actually the group of people who go cross country at the beginning of Witch Rose, I counted to decide how many people I could handle and let them have actual personalities. And I said, okay, beyond this, and I think it's 8 or 9. And so I said, okay, I can do this many because beyond that, they'll be just like spear carriers. And I said, I want everyone to be a person in this. At, and so one of the things I did early on, just as like, have you read the Sun books? If you haven't, it's
I
fine. They're
haven't
science
yet.
fiction. Okay, it's fine. They're space
Mhm.
opera. There's a character, um, one of Sun's companions. This is the Alexander the Great gender flipped
Yes.
Alexander the Great in space, right? So Alexander famously had his companions, right? So of course Sun, the Alexander analog, has to have her companions. So I introduced them with different ways, and one is a ukulele, and he's a pop star, and it all makes sense in the book. Trust me, trust me. And then there's another guy who has this stupid cap he wears. Eventually, you figure out that the cap is like his emotional support cap. But I use it at first because then I can say, you know, there's a bunch of people you have to figure out who they are. So I can always say James. Oh, James is the one with the cap, right? James grabbed his cap, and I'm like, oh, right, he's the one with the cap, until you get to know him. So early on, when I have my people, I say, now I have to slowly differentiate them. And I just, out of the blue, while I was first drafting, I thought, oh, I think Shilse and Jervy had a thing, and now they just recently broke up, and that's going to be trouble for everybody because it's going to annoy everyone. And I just went with it, and it ends up has one of the most cathartic moments in the book, in the second book, where it finally where she finally says the thing she's been wanting to say, but it's only because of something else that happened. So, but it builds over that time, and they're just secondary characters. But I think to me that made it feel real. That everybody's carrying their baggage on this trip.
So how about Silsey? Is it?
I say Shilsi.
Or Shilsey? Okay. I was like, I realized I'm like, I was probably mispronouncing it.
You could say however you want. I always am like, whatever.
I'm still, we talked about this in the other interview, but I'm still mad about Alan instead of Elaine. I can't correct it in my head. I just can't.
Just say it the way you want it, and even though it is true that she is pronouncing it, the voice actor, that's Shiromi Arserio, who's great. Even though she is pronouncing it correctly, you can say Alan in your head. It's all right. It's totally fine. I actually kind of think of it as Elaine.
Elaine. That's the way I pronounced it the whole time when I read it.
Yeah, and that's so, how like, I pronounce it.
Yeah. Her more correct way, I struggle with. But I even at one point was because I never used to do audiobooks. And so I've been doing the last several years, I've been like rereading series that I really enjoyed and doing the audio to experience it a different way. And the amount of them I found out I've been just pronouncing things wrong for years. It's rough. It's rough for the non-audio people. There's so many names. I'm just like, oh boy, was I wrong there, big time. So, but she's that narrator is on the list for at least half of the books of people who can pronounce Gesh correctly, though. That's always really interesting. So
these voice actors are fabulous. I mean, they aren't. I'm sure they're not all equally skilled, and not every book. Sometimes they'll be skilled, but a book won't really be a good match for them. But I'm impressed by the work they do. I think it's a hard job, and they do it.
And she did a really good job.
Yeah, I think so.
I read originally physically the whole thing, and then I ended up doing a reread, doing the audio for the whole thing too. So I've done it both ways and thoroughly enjoyed both times. Besides learning, the mispronunciations.
But yeah, just think of it as alternate pronunciations.
Yeah. Oh man.
Or accented pronunciations. Whenever we go, anybody who goes to a foreign country and is speaking the language with some people can speak without local, with the accent that's spoken there, but most of us are going to be speaking with an accent. So you're just speaking his name with an accent.
There we go. I like it. All right. So I'm going to jump through the chat really quick. We have, it looks like at least one question, so I'll skip that for a second. But this is from almost an hour ago now.
Uh-oh.
No, it's okay. I think they're used to it now. Knowing the list better than I did. And mentioning Fairy. He did just read Fairy and Shadow, which sounds interesting.
I haven't read that one. I actually have read I've read like one of her fantasy, but it's mostly her science fiction. That was what really hit me hard.
I need this. There's so many of the authors that have done both too, and that's where I was focusing on your fantasy, but I am very excited to read your sci-fi too. I still need to get to all of the stuff, but we had Book Lounge stopping by.
Hello, friend.
We have Andrew here. Pretty much. So always fun chatting with one of my favorite authors for sure. But all right, I'm caught up. I think people have started to realize that I'm really bad about paying any attention to the chat during this particular live series. So they'll still talk a little bit, but they just kind of he's not paying attention. And they get it now.
No.
So your episode 8 or something.
He's just ignoring you, but I'm not ignoring you. I'm not ignoring you because I don't have chat open. So that doesn't count as ignoring you. I'm just oblivious. Yeah.
Yeah. You definitely cannot blame Kate. She would love to talk to you all, but I'm just being mean and hoarding all of her time for myself. And
I actually can't do the talking and the typing. I can't switch back and forth. I can't multitask in that way. So I just choose to do the one. I could do that or that, one or the other. So
Yeah, I try to. Well, this is though. There's been 2 of these where, come to find out, if you edit the description, it automatically changes it to yes, this is for kids, which disables the chat. I don't know why, but that's a thing. I have accidentally started 2 of these, including the first one, with chat disabled. And so my poor guest in the first one thought just nobody showed up at all, and like nobody wanted to
Oh
watch, and
no.
felt really bad. And then I realized like halfway through the chat had been off the entire time, and people were trying to tell me, but I wasn't paying attention. So
Oh
it was a fun time. It was a really fun time with it though still. Oh, and we had Tori showing up, asking the old good starting point one. So it's
You
yeah,
know you can answer this, right? You
yes,
know
I
how to
can
answer
answer
this.
this. So there is on Kate's website, I Make Up Worlds. There is a really great actually thing that kind of describes the books and talks about starting points, including which Tori is also into K-pop, so she will definitely appreciate all of the books described as boy band members. Tori, if you needed any other reason to check out Kate Elliott books, there you go, right there. Um,
It's just
so,
it's Kate Elliott, it's kateelliott.com. And
oh,
that's
I'm
all
sorry, you changed it. I forgot.
it was
Sorry.
also I Make Up Worlds. They both go to the same place.
Okay.
And it's called, I think, Where Should You Start with My Novels? And actually, I think the Witch Roads duology isn't on there yet. I need to get on that and add it.
Yeah.
I'm a little slow, but I need to add that. I need to add that to my list of things to do.
I do think The Witch Roads is a good fantasy starter. I feel like Tori, Unconquerable Sun probably would be a fair one for you, which I think we're going to definitely talk about a bit as well. Which the so I'm going to completely forget. So I'm going to skip back to the other question that I missed from way earlier.
Oh, okay.
But favorite cover out of all of your books, which that is a tough one.
This is I don't know that I have an. I've been pretty lucky and had a pretty strong group of covers. So I don't have one favorite, but I will say that the Jim Burns cover for his Conquering Sword, I own that painting because it absolutely encapsulates that series. It shows a spaceship taking Jim Burns is I don't know if that he's working much anymore, but he was pretty I was really excited to get him for the Duran books. Shows a spaceship taking off, and in the distance, and then in the foreground you see these like horse riders, and not like modern horse riders, but like the old-timey, like steppe nomadic horse riders or whatever. So it's that contrast between the two things, and that, like, to me, encapsulates the whole aesthetic of those books. So I love that one. The Jody Lee so Jim Burns, he's fantastic. Of course, the Michael Whelan cover, because he's Michael Whelan and he's like incredible.
Yeah.
And because that painting, because he really got into that painting, and put all these details in it, and because he painted himself as the villain, which I love. And
That is
then
great.
the Jody Lee covers are for Crown of Stars are she's great. I think that I particularly love the Burning Stone, where you have the heroine seated on a horse and she's doing a Parthian shot behind. So she's in the back. I just love that, like archers and horses and her hair streaming out. It's like really great.
That one at least I have behind me. But
yeah. I love that cover. I would say the Cold Magic covers, they're Larry Restant covers. I love the vibe of those colors, but unfortunately she's they used a white girl model, and the character's not, she's multiracial, so she's not white. So the cover for the short fiction collection, which just came out in fall of 2024, the History of the World Begins in
Oh,
Ice from the small press cover. Do I any chance I have it? No. No. Anyway, that's by Tom Canty, who's another like iconic, incredible writer. And for some reason, the small press publisher, Patrick Swenson, like is buddies with him, and so Canty does like one cover a year for his little Fairwood Press, which does like 6 books a year. It's like his own little micro press, and he said, "Well, I can give you a Tom Canty cover. Would you like that?" And I'm like, "Yes." And it's spectacular, and it's just I love it. So look for it. It's called The History of the World Begins in Ice, and that's another great one. That's just, I mean, I've been very lucky. I think that cover for the Revolution's Shore cover, which is kind of weird, is maybe my worst cover, which is not bad, considering. So yeah, those are some of my favorites.
I almost bought that one despite not having read the series that it's from, but I'm like, I should at least read the series first. But I remember seeing that The History of the World Begins in Ice available from your newsletter. I'm like, ooh, what's this? I'm like, oh, but I haven't read this one yet. So
Well,
I'll have to
so I want to say about that, that all the stories stand alone, and there's all the stories function as complete stories. The stories, a couple of the stories will have a lot more resonance if you've read the trilogy, and some of the stories toward this in the second half of the collection, which is the stories are arranged chronologically, according to the time they take place, will be spoilers for the trilogy, but you can read the stories. And the best thing about that collection is the art, because it's got the Tom Canty cover, and then I commissioned a black and white drawing for each story to go with the Julie Gillen drawings, because there's a whole like illustrated short story in the middle, right in the middle of it. And then each of the other ones has a different black and white illustration so there's a total of like 8 or 10 different artists who have illustrations in it, and they're all fabulous. And I would just frankly, just get that book for the art. I mean, the stories are great. I love the stories, whatever, but the art is fantastic. And these artists were so kind. Some of them agreed to do it, even though they were on deadline for other things. And agreed to give me anyway. It was just it was wonderful, including Tom Canty, Todd Lockwood, Jody Lee, John Picasso, Julie Dillon, and I'm blanking on the Nyla Magruder, Charles Tan, Gemma Salume, and there's someone I'm blanking on that I'm going to be embarrassed about later. But anyway,
I've got it up here. Cian Rowan.
Oh yeah.
Shatsuki, Charles Tan, Jeffrey Ward, Wendy Zhu.
Oh, Elaine, she did the cover for the chapbook. There's a chapbook that goes with it. Elaine Silencio? Leoncio. Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, it's a fantastic. At least 4 of them, 4 or 5 of them are major award-winning artists. So I mean, come for the stories, sure, and the stories do stand alone, but the art is so amazing, and it's done. It's not like stock art. Like the art is done for the story. Anyway, I love it. This isn't a book that I made any money on. It's a small press book. It's done for the love of it, purely because I had all these stories set in the Spirit Walker world, and I really wanted to do an illustration-based collection.
All right, I'm buying it right now. You've sold me. It didn't take a whole lot. I looked at it before and was really tempted. There you go. There's more Kate Elliott goodness to check out.
And they're short, and it's short fiction, so it's not like 7 volumes, right?
I did a lot of short fiction, like short story collections and stuff in September, and I prefer my full length. I got a little burned out on it, so I will wait a while before I do this. I'll probably still try and get to the actual like main books first, but
Well, I'm
it's
actually the same. I don't write much short fiction because it's not a because I don't read much of it. I think for the same reason, I like the meat of a novel. I just wrote these over about 10 years, 10 or 12 years, and no longer, like 15 years. And then I just wanted to collect them. So
fair enough. I did read. You were one of the highlights in the Book of Dragons, the
yeah,
Jonathan Strahan one.
yeah.
That was sort of a mixed bag for me, but I liked your story in there.
Oh, thank you. I liked writing that story.
That was very Kate Elliott. I just
It was
reading this. I'm like, yeah.
It was such a Kate Elliott story, man. And I have actually, I should mention this if there's anyone left after, oh my gosh, an hour and a half. If there's anyone left, I have a new novelette that's up on Reactor Magazine, which you can read for free on Reactor Magazine. That's my only near future SF story. So, and it has, talk about great covers. It has the most spectacular illustration by a guy named Juan Bernabeu. It's a fantastic illustration.
Well, somehow I missed this. I'm going to have to absolutely go. Is this Barnacle?
Barnacle. It's called Barnacle. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So look up Barnacle on Reactor Mag. Yeah, I will definitely have to check that one out. Oh yeah, that looks nice and short. So
it is. It's like 9,000 words. It's 9,000 words, which is for me like flash fiction. So
you do tend to go long, which you did though, and I commented too in my review. You proved you can do fast paced and shorter if you want to with the duology, because Nameless Land is like very quick moving. And I'm like I like the nice slow taking 7 books to get going where we're going everything too. There's still a lot of stuff, but it was like Nameless Land was like pulse pound. Like it was so hard to put down for me because there was so much happening, and you definitely showed you can do both. And you've done several novellas and different items and things too.
And I wrote a young adult trilogy, which in that pacing is like Queen in young adult. It's like faster. Cut this. You need to make your pacing faster. So I learned a lot about pacing when I wrote. That's the Court of Fives. Have you read Ken Liu's Dandelion Dynasty? Starts with the Grace of Kings, because that's the biggest 4 thick volumes, and that is not a book you read quickly. It's like a book you savor and you read. You're not like page turning it to get it done in 3 days, because especially the third book is like huge. I mean, they're all long. They're all like 200,000, 250,000. I don't know. But the third book is like 350,000. I mean, it's just monstrous. But they're great. I love them. They're just about my favorite, like big ticket epic fantasy, because he deals with everything. But I like about them that you read, I would like read a couple chapters and then a day or two would go by and then I'd read another chapter. I didn't feel like I had to be in a hurry to read. I felt like I could live with that story. So if it took me a month to read it, that was fine. I didn't have to like read it in 3 days or, suck it down in one sitting. And I like that too. I like a fast-paced book, but I also like kind of being able to just kind of soak in it.
Yeah, it is kind of nice. And like I tend to, like, one of my buzzwords, if I'm reading a review and they're like, oh my gosh, this was so slow and they just focus too much on the world, I'm like, I'm picking this up immediately. So it's one of those things where I don't tend to mind those kinds of things, but it is like, it's like fast-paced stuff can be really fun and enjoyable, and so can the slow stuff. But the sort of like stuff that you feel like you can read in segments, or whether it's just you can or it's designed that way. I've read a couple of things in the last several years that were like more episodic almost. And so like you could go pick up and like, I'm going to read this bit of it and then I'm going to go here. And like the Hanover Chronicles by the late Howard Andrew Jones, which is the series he was working on, those
Oh,
are like
yeah.
each chapter is almost like a like little novella or short story, and it's all there's a big ongoing story, but it's very episodic in that way, where you can like read a chapter and you get a pretty tight story that is moving forward with the overall plot, but like there's a self-contained story there. And so that was a really interesting one where you could just read a chapter a day and like it worked really well.
I need to, do you recommend those?
Oh, I do very highly. They're very good.
Okay. I'll look into those. That's is really sad, actually. Um,
Yes.
yeah, because evidently he was a really great guy. I never met him. But everyone said he
Yeah.
was a great guy.
Yeah, I randomly picked up another trilogy he did, the Ringsworn trilogy, and I gave it like a middling review. I loved the first book, and I gave it kind of a middling review just because the direction he was going was not what I wanted, and I said that, and he saw it and like reached out and was like, "Hey, I really appreciate this that you just gave a review and you didn't like trash it because I didn't do what you wanted, but like really acknowledged like what I did and blah blah blah." And then it told me he had a new book going on, and I'm like, okay, cool. And it's Lord of a Shattered Land is the first one.
Okay.
And so he reached out, and I'm like, yeah, I'll definitely give it a shot. And then I wasn't expecting to love it. It's like very old school sword and sorcery kind of inspired stuff, but with a lot of like more modern writing and a twist. And as the
Yeah.
main character, Hanover is like Hannibal, basically. And it's kind of that
Oh,
alternate type of
yeah,
thing.
yeah,
So there's some fun stuff there I think you'd like as well.
yeah. That sounds good. Yeah, I'm actually looking for and sometimes these days things they say are epic to me are not epic. So I'm always looking for epic. It's like just you can't say something's epic fantasy unless it's really epic. And epic doesn't just mean it was 130,000 words and had, magic in it. It means something. To me, it means something. Fate of the
Yes.
world or just cast of thousands. And I don't know, there's a weight and a heft to it and a
Hmm.
breadth to it. It's got to get that. It's got to get all of those for me to feel like it's epic. So I'm going to definitely look at that.
Yeah, it's basically he's Hanover's this great famed general, and something happens, and the world thinks he's dead. And it's after the wars have happened, been defeated, and he's now just on a crusade to save the remnant of his people that are left uh, from being completely wiped out.
Oh.
And that's kind of the basis. Um,
Oh, how
and it's
interesting.
Yeah, it's really really good. And it did the last book does provide an ending. There were supposed to be more, but you do get the main arcs wrapped up. So I always tell people that, even though there may or may not be more, it's unclear at this point that'll be coming out. But you still get your good arc.
I'll definitely look for those. I'm always looking for it's hard because I'm always looking for stuff, but there's so much available. And
Yeah.
the a library doesn't always have it. I can't really afford to like buy things and take a chance. So and there's just so much. It is hard to filter through what's
Oh,
available.
absolutely.
I miss the closest there's the one bookstore left one major bookstore left on the island in Honolulu. And I would have to
Mm.
drive like 50 minutes to get there. So I miss just going in and once I'm what I really miss is Borders because there used to be 3 Borders on the island and I could just go in and browse and see what was available on the shelves and read, the beginnings and think, oh, this looks good. And it's hard to do that now.
Yeah. I'm a big fan. I've started my Iowa did a independent bookstore summer thing where there was like all the participating bookstores had little passports and like a map, and you could go around and get your stickers and everything. And so I
Mm,
realized that there are a lot more of the small ones around than I
yeah,
realized.
yeah.
Now not all of them have the greatest selection of stuff that I like to read, but I got to explore a lot of them, and I tried to buy a book at each one and go around, and so that was really nice, just like going around to bookstores again. Because yeah, just going in and trying to find something is not always the easiest thing anymore. Granted, my TBR is already massively long. I'm
Yeah.
always getting new stuff added in anyway too. So, but yeah, I'm always on the lookout. And I'm usually I look backward too. I read a lot more like older and backlist stuff than a lot of people on YouTube do. So I still read new stuff, but I sometimes neglect the new stuff. So I'm like, yeah, but I want to go see what this author was writing in the 70s because I really want to read this series
Yeah.
and stuff. I do a lot of that too. So,
and it can be hard.
that's
It's
why I
really,
haven't caught up on you. You keep
you
writing
know
new
what?
stuff.
It just, yeah, well, I'm not stopping. I'm not stopping just to help you. Sorry. Sorry. I have a book turned in. I have a book that I turned in. And then I'm working on another one. So,
Well, I mean, I'm still
I just
obviously
keep
going to want
doing
to
it.
get my hands on those. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
please do. Like, yeah, I'll get to the other stuff eventually too. I'm still working on it, but yeah, no, definitely keep giving me new stuff to read too. So,
Well, and I have to say on behalf, I can kind of safely say this on behalf of all writers, which is, you know, thank you. Thank you to all the readers, because we literally couldn't do this without the people reading. So, yeah.
yeah, it's a fun time. So we are, gosh, it has been an hour.
It's
and
been
40.
a long time.
I promised you time to just go on about Alexander the Great, though.
We're you know what? No, it's been I'm extroverted out, Nico. I'm extroverted out. We'll have to do Alexander the Great later.
Okay. Oh my gosh, I feel so bad. There was like I even joked because we said that the last time, and I even joked in the email like I will give you all of the Alexander the Great time that you want. And
well, he's not going anywhere. He's dead.
This is true.
So we could talk about him anytime we want, and he's glad. I mean, that's what he wanted out of life, was that we're still talking about him over 2,000 years later. Like, you can't do better than that when you're someone like him. You know.
That is fair. That is fair. Oh man, yeah. Well, it's I very much would love to have you back in the future here too. So I'm sure with the new books coming, well, I'm sure we'll have something to promote. Which this feels like a good time to again plug The Nameless Land, out now in stores near you, wherever books are sold.
That was really good, and it's for those who don't know, which they probably do have heard like 100 times by now. It's the second half of a duology, so it's complete. It's a complete story. You don't have to wait a year and a half, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years for the next installment. It's all done.
Yes, which is sometimes it feels like a rarity these days with other things waiting to be done.
Well,
so yeah, it is complete.
I have people are waiting for the third Sun book, so I'm also in that position. So
yeah, I mean, people are waiting for Black Wolves too, but I feel like that's going to be a long.
That one's trickier. That one's trickier because I don't have a contract for the.
Yeah.
I mean, part of the second book is written. It's like about 60, 70,000 words of the second book is written, but I don't have a contract for it. And it's, again, it runs into that. Runs into the reality of publishing, which is the big publishers don't want to publish something that's a universe someone else published. You know, Orbit canceled it. So obviously they're not going to say, oh, we changed our mind. So that means the other ones are like, well, the first book was already published and canceled. We're not going to publish the second two. And then you have to go, and self-publishing is some people are great at self-publishing, but you need to have the money and the expertise to do a whole different level of, because you got to do all the jobs that the publisher does. And I don't have either of those things. I don't either have the money to put into it or the expertise to do all the stuff that people do who self-publish to be successful. So that is where that is kind of stalled out. I have some options in my head of like, what if I could someday write a series of novels in which each novel was like 90,000 words as opposed to 180,000 words? Then I could get like ahead. This is my fantasy. This is the biggest fantasy of my life. What if I could write a 6-book series in which every book was 90 to 100,000 words. And I wrote them all. And then as they were being brought out, I could write the second two. I would have money, my mortgage would be paid, and I could finish Dead Empire and write Demon War, which are the next two books for Black Wolves. That's my fantasy.
I feel
So
like by book
yeah,
3 we would be at like 200,000 words though.
yeah,
I have
exactly.
a feeling.
That that's that. Do you know how long? So Unconquerable Sun is like 100, and that was going to be my short book, and it was 165,000 words. And Furious Heaven, because Tor wanted a trilogy, and also because actually it's the story that Furious Heaven is actually a book you can read without having read the first one, although it will have
Okay.
more impact if you read it, but you can read it. It's 300,000 words, and it has a beginning, a middle, and an end. I mean, you could be satisfied with the end. It's a satisfying ending, but it's 300,000 words. And I'm 150,000 words into Lady Chaos, and I'm eyeing it and saying, like, am I even halfway? So
that's the most fun part. I have the first editions of Crown of Stars and the little notes like next book's definitely the last one and things like that in there.
yeah.
I love
know.
them.
Oh my God.
They're so much fun with it.
Yeah.
But it's again though, like I don't know. For me, that's usually a positive because authors, I like the sprawling books. It is some shorter stuff is refreshing, and that's where like a nice duology. And the Nameless Land is, I mean, it's actually a little shorter too, at least book size. I don't know actual length, but it looks slightly smaller.
Each of those books is about 160, I think. 150, 160. They,
Okay.
it's the thinner paper and the slightly
Ah.
smaller font. So they, and the
Trick
small
me.
book size, not the big book size. So if you like compare it with the DAW books, the trim is a little smaller, and that all saves on paper costs. There's just a lot of this goes into how much money they're putting into each book. So like it's not a special edition, it doesn't have sprayed edges, it's the smaller trim size as opposed to the larger trim size because there's a little more paper involved with each sheet on the larger trim size. All of this stuff goes into the decisions a publisher makes about how they're going to the physical product that they're going to sell in the bookstore. So you can tell a lot about a book by that physical presentation.
Yeah, it's definitely fair. I feel like sometimes they want books to seem bigger than they are, and other times smaller. And it's always interesting too. But like, yeah, Unconquerable Sun does not look like it's that long when you just look at it. Because that's also
look, hold on,
there.
I got to show you.
But
hold on. So I have to grant you that. So first of all, Unconquerable Sun here is the trade paperback, not the hardcover. So this is the hardcover, but these books look about the same length, right? These books look about the same length.
Yeah.
This book is almost twice as long, but it's
oh man.
But the font is smaller and the paper's thinner. So that's what they do. They make people sit in meetings and have discussions about this. And that's one reason that I'm not really that inclined to self-publish, because just the level of decisions you have to make. I could be writing another book. Now, maybe someday I will have to self-publish. Yeah, I might have to self-publish someday. People do reach a point where the traditional publishers know your numbers aren't good enough. We're not going to publish anything else by you. And that's just the nature of the business. So maybe someday, but until that happens, I'm going to keep doing it this way because I would just rather write the books than do the other stuff.
I can see that. Yeah, I've talked to a lot of self-publishing authors as well. And there is so much that goes into it, and it's just really you having to manage everything. And so, I don't think I could ever actually get myself to sit down and finish writing an entire book, let alone do all of that stuff too. So like, I'm there with you. I'm like, there's no way. So, that's where, like, if I ever self-published, I would probably just completely do it a secret, not tell anybody about it, just put the stuff out there and be happy that it existed. But I'd have to actually write a book, which is unlikely to ever happen.
So this is really interesting. Look who came over. Yes. Yes. This is Finn. Finn, which is short for Fingolfin, because my dogs have to be named after Lord of the Rings characters. But the reason that he's over here is because it's 10 minutes to 5, and guess whose dinner time is at 5? So he came
I
over
feel
to
like
let me know that it's getting time. Finn, can you look at the
which
camera? You don't even know where the camera is. Oh, there you go.
oh, there we go. We got a little bit. Well, I know you said you're extroverted out, and it's nearly dinner time, so yeah, that's probably a pretty
Well,
good
most importantly, Finn has let me know it's dinner time.
yes, that is
Yes.
very important. So we
That was his let me down. That was his let me down yawn.
yeah, it's fair. It is also, I mean, here it's almost
It's
9
almost
p.m.
9
for
afternoon.
me.
That's
Yeah,
late.
and I have a 17-month-old, so I don't stay up a whole lot later than this.
Yeah. You need your rest.
Oh man. Well, it has been an absolute pleasure again talking to you. We seem to just make the hours go by very quickly. So thanks for bearing with me and talking to me for 2 hours again. Uh,
It was
I
really
definitely,
fun to just because we
yeah,
didn't have like an agenda. We just went. And it is actually
yes.
my favorite way to just
Yeah, that's where I'd done some interviews. I really liked them, and I talked to some fantastic authors and had fun doing those. But the new series, I'm like, I just kind of want to like get people that I really want to talk to. And some are like recurring, like new people or people I've had on before, and it's just it's fun to just chat, and especially when you're really easy to talk to and very fun to talk to as
thank
well.
you.
So it you hold a conversation very well. Which
Thank
helps
you.
for
I've
sure.
come a long way. I've come a long way from when I was a teenager, and I used to go and sit in the living room and see if I could go a whole day without speaking and if anyone would notice. So yeah, I've come a long way
Oh
since
man.
then.
Oh, absolutely.
I was a little rough as a teenager. Yeah. While I was making up my worlds, right? Drawing things and writing stories.
Yeah.
So like
You
you do.
needed that
Yeah.
time. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so one more time, The Witch Roads duology is complete. The first book, The Witch Roads, the second book, The Nameless Land. They are out now and are really great. Audio for Nameless Land is out in February for you
Yeah.
audio listeners. So that one is still coming, but we'll be here soon. You can pre-order it as a Christmas gift to yourself or someone else, though. So there you go.
There you
Great
go.
excuse to get it now.
And I will
But
just mention here, because it hasn't been announced yet, but it's going to be announced soon, that I have made a deal to do 2 more books in the Witch Rose universe.
oh, okay. I was being really careful not to mention that because I didn't remember if you had said anything yet. So okay.
I
Yes.
just sent out. Yeah, that's going to be announced like in the next week or two. It's just more a formality because the contract was signed months and months and months and months ago. But anyway, yeah.
I definitely
So
didn't
I'm
know
excited.
before I was supposed to.
You
Definitely.
didn't. You
There's no
didn't.
chance
You
of that.
didn't
No.
know. Yeah.
Um,
So they're not direct sequels. They're standalone novels. Each one is a standalone novel with a different set of characters that takes place in a different part of. So that it's complicated. You could read the duology and then you could read the next one. I mean, there's some overarching plot things happening that can be traced from book to book, but you don't have to have read any of the other ones to read any of the. But if you read them in order, you'll watch this really
mm,
upper level plot. You'll read the plot that in another novel would have been the plot. But in this case, I'm focusing on the people who are the lower level people in this world. So they're,
nice.
yeah, that's to me what I wanted to do with these stories. I wanted to write epic fantasy from the point of view of the people who are usually the spear carriers in the background.
Yeah. And I'm very interested to see more of the world. His Nameless Land, very satisfying ending, but there's still a lot to be explored in that world. So
There is a
I
lot
will
to
be
be explored in this
very
world. Yeah.
excited.
Yeah.
So Well, if I don't have you back on before, well, I have to have you back on to promote those or something.
Okay.
We'll find
All
some
right.
reason, I'm sure. But
Well, I believe my understanding is that the book, The Flower Court, which is set in the palace consort quarters.
ooh,
So it's like palace intrigue. So if you like palace intrigue, it's the book for you. And it's scheduled, I believe, it's scheduled for January 2027. So a little,
okay.
just like a year and a bit.
That's
So
honestly not too bad
that's
considering you
not
had
bad.
2 this year. So yeah.
Yeah. I was hoping it was going to come out next year, like in 1 year, but it's just how it is.
I would say your average is over a book a year
No, I
since you've
think
been
taken
first
over.
published. So
I no, it's about a book a year. It's about a book a year. But, and this is the last thing I'll say, but if you took all my books and took things like Furious Heaven, and which is 300,000 words, and if you chunked my books into normal 100,000 word length, I would actually have published way more books. I would have published like 48 books instead of 32 books or something, because that's how long they are. Like, why? I mean, I know why I do it, because I love it, right? I love the
yeah.
sprawl. I love the sprawl, the world building. But in financial terms, I'm like, I could have published a lot more books if I could have written shorter, if I could have made the installments short. Oh well, it is what it is.
Yeah. It's all worked out in the end. So
I have
yes.
no regrets. Well, or
Uh,
maybe,
all
I
right.
have no regrets. Yeah.
Well, I won't keep you any longer. But yeah,
Okay.
thanks again so much. And
Thank
yeah, I
you.
hope we can do this again sometime soon.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm excited for your reading project. I may grab a couple of those and read along. And I'm definitely
Yeah,
going to look for that,
absolutely.
the Howard Andrew Jones.
Yes.
Yeah,
I'll send
yeah.
you, I can send you a link via email too on that one. So,
Okay, thank you.
but
Yeah.
yeah. All right.
Okay.
All right. Well, thanks all so much for joining us here too. We've had like it's spiked a few times, but at least a quarter of people looks like have been here the whole time, bearing with us talking. So,
Oh, you know what? For those of you who've been here the whole time, I salute you.
Oh man. All right. Well, thanks again, everybody, for coming. Thanks, Kate, so much as well. And we'll see you later.
Yeah, thank you.